Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu salam ala Rasulullah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Jawahir al-Quran wa Durra, the jewels of the Quran and spares. We are still reading from Surah Al-Ahzab, and we are progressing slowly for sometimes one verse will have three themes. And the very last thing that we have, almost the last thing that we have spoken about was um, the verse verse 8 that speaks about the covenant, 7 that speaks about the covenant with the prophets. And remember when we took a covenant from the prophets as well as from you, O Prophet, from Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, son of Mary. These are the five prophets, Ulul Azm, as an interpretation, and those who did strive most. We did take a solemn covenant from all of them to render him support, to believe in him, and so that he may, subhanahu wa ta'ala, may question these men of truth about the delivery of truth. And he has prepared a painful punishment for the disbelievers. There's just minutes ago I was listening to the recitation of the birth of the Mawlid, the story of the Mawlid being recited in Tarim, Yemen, at Dar al-Mustafa. And this particular verse, verse 7, was mentioned. And then in a beautiful way it says, though he was the last, meaning the seal of the prophets, though he was last, he was the Muqaddam. He is really the leader of the prophets, whereby everyone will walk under his banner, meaning on the day of judgment. A beautiful concept, but the next theme does refer to the reason why this surah was called Al-Ahzab. When all those the forces in the Arabian Peninsula, the joined forces of evil, who joined forces to eradicate the nascent Muslim community. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ جاءتكم جنود فأرسلنا عليهم ريحا وجنودا لم تروها وكان الله بما تعملون بصيرا إذ جاءوكم من فوقكم ومن أسفل منكم وإذ زاغت الأبصار وبغت قلوب الحناجر وتظنون بالله الظنون هنالك ابتلي المؤمنون وزلزلوا زلزالا شديدا. And then it continues. But let's deal with these three verses first. O believers, remember Allah's favor upon you when the forces came to besiege you in Medina. And we said that really the Meccans, the polytheists in Meccans with their allies, they commenced this campaign against Medina, against the Muslims, a few hundred miles to the north of Mecca. And I think it's extremely important to mention this time and again, it was those Meccan polytheists who went to Medina to fight the Muslims. They did not leave them alone. It was a zero-sum game. They knew that it will jeopardize their status in the Arabian Peninsula. for it did not recognize the power structure that existed at the time, because it was dependent on continuing the worship of the idols surrounding the Kaaba, which was originally built by Abraham and Ishmael, peace upon them, to worship God, the one and only God worthy of worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Over the years, people drifted, introducing these idols to the Arabian Peninsula. Probably in one version, people who, the merchants who traveled north, brought some of these idols. But the idea here is that when we talk about Badr, when we talk about Uhud, these are the names of the battles that took place. And here we speak about the Khandaq, the trench. So those Meccan pagans, along with some Jewish tribes, we have Banu Nadir. We, in fact, Banu Qurayza, who had a citadel in the eastern part of Medina. Though they had a covenant with the Prophet ﷺ, and they had a dhimma, but other Jewish leaders from other tribes, Huyay ibn Akhtab from Bani Nadir al-Nadri, he kept lobbying with them until he convinced them to join effectively annulling the covenant, the treaty with the Muslims, and to join forces with the invaders. I think part of the background should be also to mention that the covenant of Medina, it's unique in the history of humanity, whereby it specifies the new ethos. It's like sometimes they call it the Constitution of Medina. It does mention the Jewish tribes as being part of this new polity, new social order, and it begins by mentioning وَيَهُودْ بَنِي عَوْفٍ أُمَّةٌ مَعَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. They form the Jewish tribe of Bani Auf. They form one ummah with the Muslims. That's a concept that was a beautiful moment that was lost to a moment of it was bad judgment of their leaders. They thought that the Muslim community would never make it. Small, weak community, they would not make it against some 10,000 soldiers that these are the Ahzab, the alliances. And the Prophet ﷺ had 3,000, almost like in Badr, 3-1. The forces invading the Muslims, besieging the Muslims, 10,000, and the Muslims themselves had 3,000. And the Prophet ﷺ anticipated the offense, and upon the advice of Salman al-Farisi. Salman was from Persia, Farsi. He suggested digging a trench surrounding the city of Medina to protect it from the invaders, and the companions they dug this trench on three sides of the city, and there was no water in the typically in certain places and where you have rivers, if you dig a trench, probably you would flood it with water also, but there was no water. And after a few attempts to cross the trench, the allied enemies, they quickly lost their morale and were forced to end the siege, also due to severe weather that uprooted their tents, their stuff, and the battle is commonly known as the Battle of the Trench, غزوة الخندق, or غزوة الأحزاب, the enemy alliance. So this verse reminds the believers, يا أيها الذين آمنوا, O believers, remember Allah's favor upon you when the enemy forces came together to besiege you in Medina, to that spot. And when it says فَأَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ رِيحًا in the Quran in general, when it says, it's the same word with, I mentioned this before, but here is appropriate. Rih is a powerful wind that is meant as a punishment. Riyah, just simply add same root, same, it's still wind. In the plural, riyah, but here with adding one more vowel, and it becomes the winds are gentle and they are good. So, for example, they help in pollination, lawaqih. The wind. The idea is riyah is good, and rih is really a punishment for to different peoples. So this verse reminds the Muslims, of the believers, of this blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that once those forces surrounded Medina, besieged Medina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately sent that wind, that rih, and soldiers that you did not see, and soldiers that you could not see. It's the angels, and Allah is all seeing of what you do. The morale, the Muslims were shaken, and it's not only Hudayfa radiallahu anhu. You simply imagine when you are besieged with a strong army, where the materially, if talk about down to earth, calculation of things, the odds of winning against such an army will be almost nil. But that's not how things are calculated. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on your side, you have basically no fear. إذ جاءكم من فوقكم ومن أسفل منكم إذ زاغت الأبصار وبلغت القلوب الحناجر تظنون بالله الظنون. Remember when they came at you from the east and west, literally from above you, from beneath you, but this refers to the terrain, the topography of Medina. When your eyes grew wild in horror, and your hearts jumped, Allah and His Messenger have promised us nothing but delusion. That's really the hypocrites, and you'll find them in every suicide. Every now and then they will emerge, especially when you have a serious threat. وإذ قالت طائفة منهم يا أهل يثرب لا مقام لكم فارجعوا ويستأذن فريق منهم النبي يقولون إن بيوتنا عورة وما هي بعورة إن يريدون إلا فرارا. And remember when a group of them said, O people of Yathrib. Yathrib is the name of the Medina before the arrival of the Prophet ﷺ and Muslim immigrants. It goes by other names. Later on, Tayyiba, and that's a beautiful name. And usually you say Medina, it comes from city of the Prophet, Medina al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. O people of Yathrib, there is no point in you staying here, so retreat. Another group of them asked the Prophet's permission to leave, saying, our homes are vulnerable, while in fact they were not vulnerable. They only wished to flee. ولو دخلت عليهم من أقطارها ثم سئلوا الفتنة لآتوها وما تلبثوا بها إلا يسيرا. Had their city been sacked from all sides and they had been asked to abandon faith, they would have done so with little hesitation. ولقد كانوا عاهدوا الله من قبل لا يولون الأدبار. ولقد كانوا عاهدوا الله من قبل لا يولون الأدبار وكان عهد الله مسؤولا. They had already pledged to Allah earlier never to turn their backs and retreat, and a pledge to Allah must be answered for. The The firar min al-zahf is considered a grave sin. To retreat, and this is we don't talk about retreat to as a maneuver. We talk about retreat. Firar al-zahf, simply running away from the battlefield, is considered a grave sin. قل لن ينفعكم الفرار إن فررتم من الموت أو القتل وإذا لا تمتعون إلا قليلا. Say, O Prophet, fleeing will not benefit you if you try to escape natural or violent death. If it is not your time, you will only be allowed enjoyment for a little while. Until the end, for a little while, until the end of your short life on earth. Who would who would basically talk about if they run away from earthly forces, who would protect them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Ask them, O Prophet, قل, ask them to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who can put you out of Allah's reach if He intends to harm you or show you mercy. They can never find any protector or helper besides Allah. قد يعلم الله المعوقين منكم والقائل إخوانهم هلم إلينا ولا يأتون البأس إلا قليلا. Allah knows those among you who discourage others from fighting, saying secretly to their brothers, stay with us, and who themselves hardly take part in fighting. Stingy. They are unwilling to assist you. أشحة عليكم. They're stingy with everything. They will not support you with anything, whether physical support, material support, or moral support. أشحة عليكم فإذا جاء الخوف رأيتهم ينظرون إليك تدور أعينهم كالذي يغشى عليهم الموت فإذا ذهب الخوف سلقوا بألسنة حداد أشحة على الخير أولئك لم يؤمنوا فأحبط الله أعمالهم وكان ذلك على الله يسيرا. They are totally unwilling to assist you. When danger comes, you see them staring at you with their eyes rolling like someone in the throes of death. But once the danger is over, they slash you with razor-sharp tongues. Ravenous for worldly gains, such people have not truly believed, so Allah has rendered their deeds void, and that is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One more verse directly about we have several verses, and I don't think that we'll be able to cover all of these verses in this session. يحسبون الأحزاب لم يذهبوا وإن يأتي الأحزاب يودوا لو أنهم بادون في الأعراب يسألون عن أنبائكم ولو كانوا فيكم ما قاتلوا إلا قليلا. They still think that the enemy alliance has not yet withdrawn, and if the allies were to come again, the hypocrites would wish to be away in the desert among nomadic Arabs, only asking for news about you, believers. And if the hypocrites were in your midst, they would hardly take part in the fight. Very reluctant, nominal. Their hearts are not with the believers. Inshallah, we'll continue with the rest of Surah Al-Ahzab and go over some of these verses at the beginning of the next session, inshallah. Until then, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.